The audio on the following episode is slightly glitched in a number of parts. We apologise for the poor audio experience.
If you don't understand your bottom line and your numbers and how much you need to make per day, you should not own a business.
From Swoop, it's Take the Plunge, a podcast about how business owners decided to stop what they were doing and took the plunge to start their own business. We take a look at how they came to that decision, what those first crucial steps were in getting their business up and running. My name's Kieran Brick and I'll be your host for this episode. Today we're joined by Glen Brophy, a hairdresser of 17 years between Australia and the UK. He then decided to set up Tribu Hair salon and spread his wings and with his own concept. He's very passionate about the industry, customer service and business, and we're delighted to have Glen on the show today. Thanks so much for joining us, Glen. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks, Karen. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good. I suppose what I'd be really interested to know from you, Glen, first and foremost, is when did you decided you're going to do it yourself, set up Tribu?
I decided a while back I was going to set up my own business. I just hadn't really planned when or where. So obviously it takes a bit of time to get all those things aligned. But when I did get back to the UK about 2 years ago, I went into a job and I wasn't exactly happy just working like everybody else and was like, I think it's time.
Yeah.
So I pretty much, that's how it all came across is.
And was it just a feeling, a moment, or is it just a general thing that kind of hit you?
It was time. And I knew it was time. I was like, I can't keep doing this over and over again. So I think everyone gets to that point.
Yeah. And talk to me about those kind of first kind of couple of months once you'd made the decision. Was it tough, like setting up the business, setting up a bank account, all those kind of things? Did it become easy to you?
Generally I find the best thing is as long as you're organized and understand what you're doing with business, it's okay. It's generally pretty easy. I'm not one of those people that will just jump in. So it's always make sure you understand what you're doing with your business. Setting up bank accounts can be done, but you also need to do a lot of research into everything and toward companies. You also need to make sure you register your business so you can actually get these bank accounts and whatnot. So it's a lot of prep before you even start.
Yeah.
And then the other biggest thing I found was just trying, like I was self-funded myself. So if you do need funding, then that's quite a hassle in itself unless you can prove something that it's going to work. But when you're starting out, you're quite high risk. So you do definitely need to look into everything before you just go jump in off and hope for the best. So it's definitely like, it is worth it. It just takes time.
Mm-hmm. And I suppose talking about some of that preparation, was it a lot of saving up if you were self-funding the business yourself?
I started my salon with £3,000.
Wow, that's impressive.
So I still had to. The salon when I started, it was pretty much an empty room, and the plumbing cost $2,500. So I just had to ask the plumber very nicely if I could pay him off. Yeah. And then same with the color company that I use. Yeah. You get a 6-week account. So I just was like, right, I have 6 weeks to be able to pay all this stuff off. Wow. So you just have to, like for me, I had to keep working part-time at my old job and then I did 3 days there and 4 days in my salon just to start up.
Yeah. And then, okay, so that's so fascinating. You £3,000, you spend £2,500 on plumbing. You've taken a 6-week credit line essentially for a load of colouring. What did you spend the other £500 on?
I pretty much had to just use paint, chairs, and a mirror, and pretty much just had to start it from scratch. But that's the thing. My salon pretty much now, it's taken a year, but now I'm like, finally, I can afford new chairs and I can afford paint and I can afford everything. So, but that's the thing. It's just, you can do it on a shoestring. You just have to be prepared to be pumping money in for the next year into the business. So, but it's worth it. But I still don't know how I did it. Even I still am like, I don't know how I did it on £3,000.
That's amazing. And And as you were kind of like balancing, okay, I've got this 6 week to pay back all this color product. What were you doing in terms of getting those first customers through the door? Did you have a kind of book of customers you were able to go to, or what kind of strategies were you using?
Well, I couldn't take my customers because obviously they were across London and in a different salon, and they were basically funding it by working there and keeping busy there.
Yeah.
So what I did is I used Treatwell, which is the best marketing in the UK you can ever have for a new business. Obviously, they do take a cut, but the reality is when you have no clients, it is the best way to get people through your front door. So I utilized that, and that actually gave me a great little, pocket of clients, which just to build up and keep building.
Because when I was, I suppose, doing my research before this call, when I was looking at Tribu, the first thing that cropped up for me was Treatwell.
Yeah. So Treatwell is the biggest marketing tool any salon could ever use if they utilize it to the full extent. Obviously, I still am on Treatwell, but I only use it 1 day a week.
Yeah.
So generally now I'd use it for new stuff.
Yeah.
And for me, we have our own booking system now.
Awesome.
So it means that way people book directly through the company. It works out better for us. But yeah, Treatwell literally is so aggressive. It works a dream.
Awesome. And talk me through that kind of opening couple of months. How exhilarating or stressful was it watching those kind of bookings coming in from Treatwell?
I think it was both. It's very exciting to see that you're busy and also shocking that how can there be this many people needing hair done. But then I also there's 9 million people living in London and there's not that many hairdressers. Yeah. So there's a lot of hair that needs doing constantly. So I think it took a while to accept it and go, it's okay. It's going to be okay. You're going to be busy. Yeah. So I think the first few months were a little bit crazy, and then we obviously had coronavirus hit, so we had to shut down. But I'd been in 4 months by then, and I was like, I'm pretty much booked constantly. And when coronavirus hit, I just decided to completely take the plunge and finish up my part-time job. Nice. And then I have not looked back because I am so busy, which is amazing. That's awesome. I can't complain. Yeah.
And what did you do during the kind of lockdown time?
I, like most people, I sat at home and ate a lot of food. I didn't really do much, to be honest, because we were shut. Hair salons were shut for almost 4 months. Yeah. So we, I don't know. I really didn't do much. I think there's only so much you can do. I went in and changed the floors in the salon because I had nothing to do. Yeah. And just kept going in and painting and cleaning and doing things to keep the salon ticking over. But not a whole lot, to be honest. No. It's pretty much just like everyone else, sitting around, kind of twiddling their thumbs. So,
and then I suppose when we got out of lockdown the first time round, what was how did it feel? No part-time job, fully in the business. Were you very excited? Were you nervous?
I was excited. I was excited and slightly stressed at the amount of work that I knew I had for July and August. Yep. Obviously, I like to be organized, so I'd booked everybody already for all of July and August. So the best part is I knew that there was money coming in, and that takes up a lot of stress when you've opened a brand new business. So that was good. But yes, I've never worked so damn hard in my entire life after having 4 months off. So it was amazing. And yeah, I wouldn't change it. And I'm extremely glad that now Christmas is looking exactly the same all over again. Nice.
And how do you manage it in terms of managing your time? Because obviously if you're cutting hair or styling hair, it takes a huge amount of time. How do you manage it to do all of that plus run the business side aspect of it in terms of taking the bookings, managing the accounts?
With with the business side of it, I don't actually take phone calls. So we don't have a phone in the salon. Everything's done via social media, or people book in online via the website all by themselves. If people have questions about anything, they either email or they message us on Instagram. And I just, in between clients, get back to everyone and just keep it running.
Yeah.
And the business side of it's all online now. Like, that's why we have zero. If you have the systems set up, it's actually quite fast. I think if you were trying to do it all by hand, that's when it takes time. Once you get used to doing something, I can just sit there on the bus and go through my paperwork on the phone. So I just utilize my time as much as possible. But I think people, like, don't be fooled by the fact that you think you go into a business and you go in from 9 till 5 and you're finished. You're never finished. There's always work. There's always something that needs doing. There's always something, a bill to pay. There's always something to just keep going, keep on top of. So I think it just comes with time and practice, and the more you do it and the more you get into good habits, the easier it is.
And you kind of mentioned you have various different bookings coming in, whether it's online or via Instagram. How important is the kind of customer service element in all of those engagements?
I find that's vitally important. If you don't email people back, if you don't message people back, then you potentially could lose a client. The other option is, if you're just slack with responding to people, then they're probably going to feel the same way about the service. So I always try to respond to people as quickly as possible, and just try to get everyone organized. It also goes for me, it's also, I find that if you keep on top of things, it's not stressful. Well, if you just let them sit there and then you have 100 messages, there's your whole day gone. So it's all about just being proactive. The more proactive you are, the easier it is. And then customer service, I guess it goes hand in hand. If you're proactive and you keep your customers happy, you keep on top of their bookings, then it's a massive thing for clients.
And I'd imagine with a business like yours, customer retention is vitally important. What are the kind of things you look to do in terms to make sure that your customers are constantly coming back to you?
I am a big believer in giving clients recommendations for their hair in the future. I just find small things make a big difference. Like, also, tea and coffee, giving good service, actually talking to them about their hair and what they should be using, and still being friendly, but also explaining and teaching people about their hair. I find customer service is definitely one of the biggest things in my industry, that if your customer service is shocking, you're not going to get someone coming back. The other thing is, it's equally, if you give someone a really shocking haircut, they're not going to come back either. So it's kind of, they're the two things that I find that will really upset somebody. So, but yeah, I find, as long as I think also being just genuine as well, and making sure you're, just trying your best to look after your clients, they will come back. That's pretty much my ethos. Keep them engaged on Instagram, social media. If one of your clients puts up something amazing, always send them a message saying congratulations. Just also being involved, because on social media you can have it, but you also, you have to utilize it as well.
Talk to me about finding a space. Often business owners in service-based industries struggle when it comes to finding that first space, because people have...
Finding a space is the most horrible thing in this country. I'm Australian, so it's a bit different. Back home, it's much more straightforward. When I originally looked, I found this cute little salon or space up in Haringey.
Yeah.
And it was the right price and everything. And then I had to speak to the real estate agent and was like, right, how much is it? How much do I have to pay up? And they were like, okay, you will need to pay 6 months deposit. Obviously,
Wow.
I knew I had £3,000 in the bank, and I was like, I don't think I can afford that. Can we pay a month deposit and a month's rent? And they refused. And they wanted 6 months rent, 6 months deposit. So obviously that wasn't going to work.
No.
I then started getting a bit more creative and looking at creative spaces rather than actually a shop front. So my salon is actually upstairs in a warehouse building, where I was actually able to, I just emailed the company one day, a company that runs all these spaces, and just said, I'm looking for a space, and how does it work? And they were like, oh, it's 1 month deposit and 1 month up front. And I went, great.
Let's do it.
I can do this somehow.
Yeah.
And so basically I walked in to this space and I just went, yes, this is the one. I like it. You know, should be fine.
Yeah.
The one thing I did learn that if you do need water, please make sure you always check if that is already installed, because your bill will be significant lower than £2,500 to get water into a building. But yeah, I just kind of came across it and it was in the area I liked, and I just went, I think this is it. So yeah, I just went for it. But it is hard and you have to be creative.
Yeah.
And if you're willing to be creative, the reality is you can always upgrade the space later on.
Yeah.
You can always get a bigger shop. You can always get a nicer shop. You can always do this.
Yeah.
But to start with, you need to just find somewhere that works within, you know, the realm of what you need it for.
And how important is getting to know the local area within where you decide to set up shop?
I would say it is vital. You need to know the sort of, for my industry, you need to sort of have a look around and see what's sort of around the area.
Yeah.
For me, there weren't many hairdressers around my little area.
Yeah.
I think there's one around the area, but there's also massive amounts of brand new apartment buildings going up. So for me, I was like, well, brand new apartments, 500,000 each. There's going to be people that can afford their hair.
Nice.
So I think you've got to research the area. You've got to know if your client base is there. If you think that it's the right spot, then then definitely go for it. I think if you aren't sure and you're kind of umming and ahhing and you don't think it's actually going to be a good idea, then follow your gut and probably don't do it until you've found the right spot. There's no point setting up something, you know, it would be like setting up an indie bar in West London. Yeah. It's just probably not going to be the best of
not
options.
the crowd.
Yeah, so you kind of just got to look at the clientele, figure out will it be needed around the area, and then you then just, I guess, go for it.
I suppose kind of just looking forward a bit, as you say, December is going to be looking like it's going to be a bit of a bumper month when we get released on Wednesday. At what point do you kind of want to go and grow it more, or are you happy just establishing Tribu, or what's the plans?
Well, I'm already potentially looking at opening one maybe in Manchester as well.
Amazing.
And then I've already got a staff member starting with me full-time in January here. And then potentially I'll put on 2 here, and then I'll potentially open one up north. Because I have clients come from up north as well.
Yep.
So that way they won't have to travel 3 hours on the train. They can just go to Manchester. So I potentially may be doing that next year. And then keeping the salon the same, small, nice, and just keeping it small but having 2 teams rather than having, I don't ever want a big salon. I like my little niche salons hidden upstairs where people know where it is, but it means it still keeps it nice and calm. So my I think for me, I will potentially open one more, and then expand a little bit.
Yeah.
But for me, I don't ever really want a massive company, and the only reason being is the amount of work. People think it's going to be easier, and to be honest, it's a lot of work whether your company is small or big, but you're obviously going to end up with more work the bigger it becomes.
And in terms of identifying kind of talent that you want to get in and work for you in Tribu, is that a tough exercise to go down, or how you find that?
Well, it's a tough exercise unless you know the people you're hiring. I think the best way to sort of approach it is you always have to give people a probation period to prove. You've also got to give people the opportunity to learn and build up. I always judge people more on their personality and presence versus the skill level. You can always teach somebody to cut hair. You can't teach them to be a good person. So if somebody comes in and they're a great person and willing to learn and the right personality for the clientele, then I would take someone on board more like that, that I could send to more courses and train up, versus somebody that thinks they know everything and has no interest in the clients. Obviously, my clients mean a lot because customer service is vital, I think. So if I've got somebody coming in, I'd prefer someone to treat the clients really well and maybe not be the greatest hairdresser, but willing to learn and get better. Versus somebody that thinks they know everyone and treat the clients like rubbish. So I think it just takes time, and you've just got to get to know people. And obviously, you never know who's going to step through your door. That's my way of thinking. I know I've walked into jobs and people have been like, oh, you might be okay. And then I'm like, well, I do know what I'm doing, but yes, you never know. So I think I just kind of look at it from my past experiences too. You just have to go with your gut and hope you get someone with the right person.
And how important is that kind of ongoing training element? Is that crucial in your industry?
Training is, I think, for any industry, you're never too old to learn. There's always new things you can learn. Training is always important, I think. It doesn't have to be formal every week training, but there is always things that you can pick up and learn. Even for me, I'm constantly learning about business. I'm constantly learning still about my industry. And I think I think you're foolish if you think you know everything. Because everything's always changing. So I think it's always crucial to keep doing training, keep learning, and just keep improving.
Nice. And in terms of kind of looking forward for Tribu, with your business, have you projected certain milestones as to when you want to make that move up north, or when you want to potentially look at that second option in London, or is it play it as you see?
I'm very much, once the salon is sustained down here, and I've got one or two people in place that are busy, then it would be time. I don't ever put a time limit on something. I put it on more based on when the performance of the salon's doing well. I think if you set yourself a goal that's unrealistic, say in 6 months' time I'm going to open my second one, and your first business isn't doing well, it's not a good start. You should be focusing on the one business and then be looking to expand when that business is doing well. Versus, it might take 2 years opposed to one, but it means you've got a business that'll look after itself, and then you can do exactly the same all over again.
And I suppose, looking at your own business, do you do all the accounts yourselves, or do you get an accountant in to do that?
No. So I always look over my accounts, because you need to know where you're sitting from a business point of view. You need to know how much money you've made. You need to know where it sits. You need to know your targets. You need to know everything about the numbers. if you don't understand your bottom line and your numbers and how much you need to make per day, you should not own a business. However, as also it is something, I'm not an accountant. I then pass everything over to my accountant to do when it comes to actually that side of it, because that's not my specialty. I have no problem outsourcing things that aren't things that I don't have time for. I think you just need to be very aware of the numbers as a business person, especially your business, because if it's not doing well, it's not your accountant's job to tell you about the business. It's your job to know whether the business is doing well. It's their job to figure out how much tax and bills you have to pay. So you need to keep an eye on everything, but I always pass things on to my poor accountant, who has to hear from me a lot.
Accountant come counsellor. And I suppose what would be really interesting is, you mentioned Treatwell. Are there any other tools that you've used this year that have been really helpful as a first-time business owner?
Instagram is amazing. Instagram, Treatwell. I always think that's the main two I've used. Treatwell was great for getting it up and running, just to get my name out there. Instagram is vital for a business that's dealing with anything that you can photograph. Should be on Instagram. People look through it. People look through everything before they make a decision. If they click on your Instagram and it's a complete mess, they're not going to come. If they click on and it looks amazing, and they can see befores and afters, and they can see what you can do, then people will then take it more seriously, I find. So Instagram to me has been one of the other massive social media platforms that has really benefited my company.
Awesome. Glen, thank you so much for all the nuggets. It's been absolutely brilliant to get all the insights as a first-time business owner. Thank you so much for sharing your story so far. Wish you all the best with Tribu Hair and continued success. Thanks again for coming on today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.